Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Ressa, and today I'm joined by Peyton Thomas. Peyton, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, no problem, man. Peyton is the Vice President of Construction at Renovo, a general contractor under the umbrella of DLC. Excited for him to be here. Peyton, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am a father of three, happily married in Montclair, living in Montclair, New Jersey. I joined the Renovo team 2.5, 3 years ago. And, on a personal side, I come from an acting background. That was how I ended up, in New York City about 25 years ago. Kind of worked as a carpenter building theater sets and kind of moved into building furniture and evolved into being a contractor in New York City for quite some time. Um, I like spending a lot of time with my kids. Two of my kids are actors also, so we're always making little mini shorts and films and producing plays and things. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Are you actively in any performances now?
I am not. My wife and I, we kind of trade off year by year. This year is her turn. She's actually in a show right now that opened up last week, and that runs for another couple of weeks. And I did a show about 2 years ago, and my daughter's in a show right now, and my son just finished filming a Netflix premiere episode for a new show coming out next year. So we're all kind of busy in the business and trying to stay a part of it. But my wife and I try to, do as much sort of community theater acting as we can over the years.
So cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned New York 25 years ago. Where were you before that?
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. I went to the University of South Carolina, and I also went to the College of Charleston before I transferred up to New York and started studying acting at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Had a bit of a lucky moment when I was 21 years old and got picked to be in a movie and sort of traveled the world in that movie. And all of a sudden, I decided I needed to move to New York to be an actor, and so that's how I ended up here.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's a cool story. Anyone who wants a crazy story, you should get all the details to that one. You should reach out to Peyton because it's a fun one. So, uh, so now you're at Renovo. Tell us a little bit more about Renovo.
So Renovo is a traditional general contracting firm that you know uh, builds and manages construction projects throughout the country. Renovo was designed and sort of evolved through DLC's need to do better for their clients and tenants, and so when I came on to Renovo a couple years ago, um, my goal was to stabilize and create a strong foundation for the business and build on that foundation and scale. And the main goal that Renovo has, or one of the main goals, is to provide a stabilized and very professional approach to building and supporting the DLC portfolio and the group of tenants that that DLC brings on.
And it's going well, and now it's growing, and you are, you're also doing work outside of the DLC portfolio, primarily for uh, retailers or tenants who take retail space. You've done some of those jobs, which is outside of DLC portfolio, and we continue to want to grow that. So that's super interesting. And I think there's something to be said that you're doing that and growing that, and, the ownership is, someone who owns a real estate company, also, owns Renovo, and how do you think that plays a part in when you're out there trying to build for, new clients that aren't DLC?
I think it gives us a unique position in the industry. There are a lot of contractors, right? There's a lot of general contractors in every city. There's, quite a few national contractors. I think the unique part of Renovo and what we do as a company and ultimately what is our strategic goal is that we're very aligned with the landlord in getting the tenants open on the grand opening day when they want to start selling their products. And why would that be important to a contractor? Um, it's important because you create a budget that's based on a schedule, and the profitability of that project is most of the time based on meeting that schedule. But what makes us unique is that not only is that a business expectation, we're aligned with DLC's financial and the tenant's financial expectations. And so we look at it a little bit differently as partners as opposed to what some might seem as
A
an
vendor.
outsider, a vendor, right, or an expense, right? In some cases, a general contractor can be an expense line item. And I like to think that we look at it a little bit differently, and we provide a little bit more alignment with reaching those goals and being creative about how we get there. If we have to go above and beyond, if we have to think outside of the box, if we have to get creative with the design team and the client, we do that. All in mind of what does the tenant need in the end.
Well, retailers, if you're hearing this, if you're doesn't have to be in a DLC portfolio, if you're looking to get open, in a faster and cost-effective, efficient manner, reach out to Peyton or myself for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
okay. So one of the stores that you built not too long ago that I think is an interesting story is a Dick's Sporting Goods in Ithaca, New York.
Hmm.
And most of the time, the people on this show give the perspective of a store opening from the person who cut the real estate deal, and it might be the tenant, it might be the broker, it might be the landlord. But I think you have a unique perspective on how a store opened as the one who actually built it. So why don't you walk us through that and from your perspective, how Dick's Sporting Goods opened in Ithaca, New York?
Sure. Um, so I think, going into this project, we knew that Dick's Sporting Goods was moving from one location to this new location. So there was a really specific target date that we knew early on about how we wanted to approach this project. And I think that we early on we realized that there were some hurdles to get over, to make sure that we got to that date. Um,
That's a great point because they had an existing lease and that had an expiration and they were going to have to move and they didn't want to lose sales in the market.
exactly. And
Right.
so we knew that going into it. And so I think in a traditional way, you find yourself building in a critical path or in a way that makes sense for most projects. You start out looking at a project and saying, if I was going to follow all of the basic rules of construction, I would do this first, I would do this second, all the way to the whatever the thousandth thing that you're doing to finish the project. In many times when you start to build that schedule, you realize that if you go in that order, you're never going to meet that end date. So now you have to start to get creative and overlap and find creative ways to build, in some cases on top of each other. This renovation was exactly that. It was a renovation of an existing space. It used to be a grocery store, and we were one of the biggest elements to the project was the structural facade that everyone knows and has seen before with Dick's Sporting Goods. It's very large, has very large structural steel components to it, probably 10 or 15 different types of finishes, all within that one, facade area. And so we had to not only incorporate this new design into the existing structure, but we had to take into consideration the existing design and how to meld that to the new design. In doing that, you're now opening the store up to the elements of Ithaca, New York, whether that be rain or snow or whatever it was, and now you have to sort of decide, how do I build on the interior at the same time and achieve a schedule that requires the overlapping of these two projects. So we really approached it as two separate projects. There was the outdoor project, the facade, and the indoor project. And we had to build a structure, 30 foot by 120 foot barricade structure to keep the elements out of the interior and try to maintain a level of the correct humidity and temperature inside, so that we could build all the stuff inside at the same time while we're doing all of this structural concrete and steel and demolition and the finishes outside.
I I thought the weather in Ithaca was 70, sunny, no humidity, and dry air all year round. Is that not the case?
That is not the case. That is not the case. We were working in the dead of summer, actually. And one of the challenges was that right towards the middle of summer, I'd say late June, July, early July, we were proposing to install the entire millwork package, and flooring and all of these things that you put in on the interior of the building. That if you do it whenever there is any major variation between temperature and humidity, all of the materials start to move, they start to come apart, they don't go together very well. And so we had to strategize on how we were going to maintain that level of consistent temperature and humidity. We brought in dehumidifiers, we brought in temporary air conditioning, we worked creatively with the existing HVAC to put temporary controls in for that, so that we could provide some coverage. Again, I had this huge barricade on the outside, so it was like running two different projects at one time.
Wow, so interesting. And then the second thing is, at the time, this was a very new prototype for Dick's Sporting Goods.
Absolutely.
And so they were testing and trying things out on the fly, and you had to navigate. Why don't you talk us through that?
Sure. Yeah. No, there was significant number of design changes, and I would say, we did a great job of working with the Dick's team to maintain a consistent schedule with how we were building the space, but incorporating the new designs into the space. So we didn't have to move very many walls. We didn't have to change very many elevations. There was a lot of changes to, a lot of the visual aspects of it. There was a new design on some of the murals on the outside of the wall. There was incorporation of these new millwork pieces that lived in the middle of the space, which was affecting the sprinklers and the HVAC and the electrical. And so there was a lot of coordination with that team to succeed. And again, it really had everything to do with the schedule, and so we couldn't let that affect the schedule.
And and I know that every job always runs outside of that, always runs exactly as planned, smoothly, perfect, with no hiccups.
Right.
Um, but on this one, there was an injury as well that caused you to have to replace personnel. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, unfortunately, our site superintendent, who was really he's the heartbeat of the whole project. Our site supers, they really run the day to day. They manage the communication with all the subcontractors. They're really the lifeblood for Renovo and how we get our job done. And unfortunately, he was lifting, helping a subcontractor and lifting something up to a ladder, and tweaked his back a bit, and ultimately he had to go home for the duration of the project. So, our team rallied. We brought in, my site super was unfortunately at home, so We brought in our project manager, went up there for a couple of weeks. I went up there for a couple of weeks. The assistant project manager went up there for a couple of weeks. We even, used some of DLC's resources with the property manager up there who helped us out, and it really became a team effort to bring the project home, which I think was a testament to the ability to maintain communication not only within my own team but also the Dick's Sporting Goods team and the design team. That was really the challenge.
I think, you know, one of the reasons I like this story is like you had already a tight schedule. The only way to build it was to make it these two separate projects that overlapped, that were distinct projects and kind of conflicted with each other. And it was really important to Dick's Sporting Goods that it opened on time and looked fantastic. And along the way, we had a ton of design changes, which could throw off timing. And we had a key personnel get injured that we had to navigate and work through. And to go through all that in such a tight timeline and still be successful, hats off to you, Peyton, and the team. And I think that's just a pretty good showcase to how strong Renovo is and why they're such a great general contractor for retailers.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, Peyton, um, anything else that we didn't talk about that we should touch on, whether it's about Dick's, whether it's about Renovo, whether it's about general contracting?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that that we that I've been focused on this year and last year is scaling Renovo into a company that works together with large national brands and becomes a partner with them. I think that lots of times the partnership of a contractor with the client and with the architect and design team is sometimes lost, right? We're lost. We're brought in at the end. We're asked to do all of these things, as again, as almost as an expense or as just an afterthought. And so what we're trying to do is build relationships with companies that want to scale in a way that you learn from the processes that you create along the way. One of those companies is Image Studios. We've built our first Image Studios down in Fort Myers at a DLC property, and we created a relationship with the Image Studios executive team, and now we're working intimately with multiple franchisees across the country. I just met with someone last night, a team of a husband and wife team. They're opening their first Image Studios in New Rochelle, and I had just the greatest meeting with them yesterday, where they took me into the space that they're looking to sign the lease for. They were looking for someone who could, support what they were looking to do and get out of the lease that they were trying to sign and make sure that they were getting into the right deal for their pro forma. And I was able to sort of provide some insight into what are the elements of this project that will or will not work in this space. We're going to work with them closely on trying to create a budget for them. And even though I'm not the guaranteed contractor, they're still going to go out to bid to, however many contractors for this project. And I hope to be one of them. I think the experience that I'm building with, not only this franchisee and hopefully many others, I'll be in Raleigh next week meeting with one, is only going to build on being able to do each job a little bit better and a little bit faster. And I think that's the key to creating that relationship. And one of the things we talked about last night was you have to earn the trust of your team, right? I can talk all day long about how great I am and how many great Gucci stores I've built in Manhattan, but at the end of the day, can I build your store the way you want it to be built, on the budget that you want, in the schedule that you want, and work with the team that you build? And that's really what we're trying to do. I think that's the next phase and the next growth for the growth step for Renovo. And and the great thing about that is the stronger we get doing that over and over again, we're only going to become a greater partner to DLC because we're going to be more organized, we're going to have more experience, and we'll be able to partner better with DLC and DLC's tenants.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, yes, Peyton built in a past life. He's been a retail contractor for a while, built a ton of Gucci's, but that's transformed from he's built Gucci's. He's under construction on a self-storage facility now. He's built Five Belows, Burlington's, grocery stores. Peyton's done it all. So anyway, Peyton, thanks so much for doing this. It was really awesome. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.